Welcome. I'd like to talk to you today about evolution. Is it truth? Is it science? Is it religion? If it's truth, then a natural process produced life from non-living matter, such as simple organic molecules. If true, then all life has come from a single-celled ancestor which existed about 3.5 billion years ago. The deep sea vent theory suggests that life may have begun at submarine hydrothermal vents, spewing out key hydrogen-rich molecules, and that their rocky nooks could have concentrated these molecules and provided mineral catalysts for critical reactions. The metabolism first theory suggests life might have begun with smaller, simpler molecules interacting with each other in cycles of reactions. These might have been contained in simple capsules like cell membranes. And over time, more complex molecules that performed these reactions better might have evolved. Whatever the theory, to equate with real life, eventually amino acids and DNA would have to be formed. One theory is that amino acids formed in the sea from a reducing atmosphere and lightning. Then later DNA was formed, which then formed cells. There are several problems with this theory. It all seems great until we realize that even the simplest cell or bacteria must be extremely complex just to function. For example, it must have a protective membrane. This would have to be permeable, ideally with at least 2 layers, and regulate the movement of nutrients and oxygen in, and carbon dioxide and waste out. Internally, there needs to be a nucleus which stores genetic information, mitochondria which produce chemical energy, and ribosomes which assemble proteins. This is quite a feat to happen naturally. And unless the nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes and cell membrane are all in place at the same time, there would be no cell and no life. So, it's a lot more complicated than a few strands of DNA. What is more, DNA needs protection. So DNA on its own will not survive while it waits for a cell to miraculously form around it. Another thing, if there's oxygen in the atmosphere, formation of amino acids would not have happened. But just supposing there was a reducing atmosphere 3.5 billion years ago, where has all the hydrogen, methane, ammonia and hydrogen sulfide gone? Maybe it got lost to space. Oxygen could have come from photosynthesis, but where has all the nitrogen come from? Do you know, it's an amazing fact that our atmosphere is in equilibrium. Our atmosphere is continually lost to space, yet it's replenished somehow to maintain nitrogen at 78%, oxygen at 21% and argon at 0.93%, plus trace amounts of carbon dioxide, neon, helium methane, krypton, hydrogen and water vapour. I think it's reasonable to suppose that this equilibrium has lasted for most of our planet's life. The famous Miller-Urey experiment showed that amino acids could be formed from a mixture of reducing gases and an electronic discharge. This seemed to support the theory that amino acids formed naturally formed DNA and DNA formed cells. Most amino acids come in two forms. They contain the same atoms, but they're a mirror image. They are left or right, depending on how they rotate polarized light. Rather like a left hand and a right hand. All life on Earth has left amino acids. Experiments have shown that if amino acids were formed naturally in the sea, they would be both right and left. This cannot possibly form DNA because the right-handed amino acids would disrupt the chain. So DNA cannot form naturally from amino acids. As we have said, all cells must have a permeable membrane which allows nutrients in and waste out, and it also keeps harmful chemicals out also. As all the cell components must be in place at once, or the cell will not be viable, cells are not possible by natural processes. Another problem: it is chemically impossible for amino acids to form DNA in water. This is because it is a condensation reaction where water is a product. DNA has all the properties of a language. Language is always associated with intelligence. It is a double digital, self-correcting code. That code must be accurate to 1 in 8 billion, or the organism dies. Now humans are very capable, but even the best typists in the world could not type that accurately. And if we can't do it, how can we expect random natural processes to do it? DNA is so complex, it would take an intelligence far exceeding our intelligence to produce it and produce the DNA language. In addition, when cells divide, the replication of DNA is so complex and so elegant, involving enzymes, it is hard to theorize that this came about by random natural processes. So, the natural formation of DNA and living cells is not viable. But is there actually any evidence for evolution? Well, there is no fossil evidence. There should be thousands of transitional fossils, but there aren't any. Even Darwin admitted this, but he hoped and expected that they would be found on further excavation. Some missing links have been proposed, but they've been disproved upon further investigation. Today we have a fully explored fossil record, but no transitional fossils have been found. It has been found that many organisms supposed to just be fossils are actually still alive today in a very similar form. One of the most spectacular of these living fossils is the coelacanth. This fish was once thought to be a transitional form between fish and amphibians. Its fossils are found in the Devonian strata, which is given an age of 400 million years. However, a live coelacanth caught off Madagascar in 1938 showed the same form as the fossils. So no evolution in 400 million years. Doesn't that strike you as odd that a 400 million year old fossil could still be alive? Logically, it doesn't pan out that the fossils are a record of evolution. There's the Nautilus, a cephalopod mollusk with a light external spiral shell and numerous small tentacles around the mouth. It was believed to have lived at least 500 million years ago, but it's alive today and almost completely unchanged. So no evolution in 500 million years. If these fossils, as claimed, are really many millions of years old, then they have not evolved over these vast time periods, showing that evolution is false. Is evolution science? To be science, evolution must comply with the scientific method. This means making predictions based on the theory and confirming the predictions with further observations. Darwin did not do this. Instead, he used a lot of flowery words that sounded scientific. The exception is natural selection. Although there is no fossil evidence for evolution, Darwin's observations did prove natural selection, but he made a giant leap of faith when he proposed evolution. This wasn't scientific. Is evolution religion? Believe is a common word used about evolution, and hope, not fact or evidence. One of our prominent evolutionists has said, quote, "It is absolutely safe to say that if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane, or wicked, but I'd rather not consider that," close quote. Note that he said, quote, "believe in evolution," close quote. This is the language of religion. And not only is his statement untrue and offensive, it's also rendered forcibly with a strong faith in evolution. To quote Charles Darwin, "To suppose that the eye, with its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for emitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I confess, absurd in the highest degree. The difficulty of believing that a perfect and complex eye could be formed by natural selection, though insuperable by our imagination, should not be considered subversive to the theory." When he says should not be considered subversive, he's not logical. He spent much of his time inferring it's impossible, then squelches it in the last sentence. Darwin did not want to believe that the eye was totally improbable via evolution, because he believed in evolution. Evolution had become his religion. it has become the religion of many more people, and they hold on to it ferociously. Cells, the eye, other organs, and many microorganisms are complex, and each part must be in place at the same time for them to work. Such organs or organisms cannot reasonably be expected to form gradually by natural processes. In other words, their existence is impossible by evolution. The thing is, many scientists who believe in evolution, with the best will in the world, have their observations coloured by what they believe. An experiment was carried out on 10-year-old rock produced by the Mount St. Helens eruption of 1980. Care was taken to get a 1 kilogram sample of rock that had not been exposed to air, and care was taken not to introduce contamination in the sample preparation, which separated the rock into its 4 constituents: feldspar glass, heavy magnetic, heavy non-magnetic, and pyroxene. The ages obtained by a reputable laboratory that did not know the actual age of the samples were from 340,000 years to 2.8 million years, with an experimental error of 60,000 years, which gives us a range of 280,000 to 400,000 for the feldspar glass, and 2.2 to 3.4 million years for the pyroxene, subtracting and adding the experimental error. The scientists who made these measurements did not question them, because they were the sort of ages that they were expecting. The fact is, people have to say they believe in evolution or hope it is true because there is no evidence, and instead of believing in God, evolution has become their religion. There is something important to say. To quote Galileo's letter to the Grand Duchess Christina, here's what he said: "We need to apply sense and reason to evolution and not just believe it because we don't want the alternative." To summarize, if amino acids were formed in nature, they would exist in both forms, which could not make life as we know it. Even if this weren't so, amino acids cannot form DNA in the sea because of the water. Darwin didn't follow the scientific method, so evolution cannot be called a scientific theory. There is no fossil evidence for evolution, and many of the fossils are found alive and virtually unchanged today. No evolution. People say they believe in evolution and hope evolution is true because it's become a religion to them. There is no evidence, so Darwin had to make a giant leap of faith to propose evolution. There are many more examples and problems that I could cite, but I suggest that we have seen that evolution is not true, not scientific except for natural selection. It was Darwin's religion and has become the religion of many more who believe in it, perhaps because they cannot accept the alternative. I realise I've come on strong, and you may have feelings for or against what I've been saying. But I'm still willing to talk to you about it if you'd like to email me at h_robinson@live.co.uk. God bless you.